The problem is that in the American context, you can't fight this issue. You can't fight the caste discrimination issue by simply denying that caste discrimination exists. You also can't fight it in the court of public opinion by saying that caste is a Hindu issue, and thus it breaks the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution to have a focus on caste. That might work in a court. I'm not a lawyer. It is not going to work in the court of public opinion. Americans are always ready to fight injustices, and if you're going to win this challenge, you beat this challenge, you have to educate non-Indian Americans about caste. So the first thing to educate them on is when we're talking caste in America, we're talking jati. I would even encourage you to try to shift the term from caste to jati. The Varna system is very inspiring to many people. We heard several talks about Varna just now, but Varna is not the target of this legislation. The target of this legislation is endogamous caste groups reflected in last names, reflected in people's community identity. This is about jati. And so the first suggestion is you should shift the debate to jati. Much more importantly, you should emphasize that caste discrimination is a historical Indian problem. It is not a Hindu problem, which is to say, caste is something that comes out of India. It is not something that comes out of Hinduism. And so when you talk about Varna, yes, you can make strong connections between Hindu scriptures and the Varna system. But the Varna system is not caste as defined in India by the Constitution, as we mean in the cases that have arisen in the US. What we're talking about when we talk caste is jati. And that's why I encourage you to strongly distinguish between Varna as a Hindu system and caste as an Indian system. And I emphasize that because surveys show, the Pew Research Center's survey of religion in India shows that most Muslims in India have a caste, that is, they identify with a caste. Nearly all Sikhs identify with a caste. A large number of Christians, about 1/3 of Indian Christians, identify a caste identity when asked on surveys. Now, that's despite the fact that in India, jati or caste is not recognized for Muslim Sikhs and Christians, because in principle, well, they're outside the system. And if you want to be a scheduled caste, there are 1,108 scheduled castes, 744 scheduled tribes, 2,479 other backwards castes. There are more than 1,000, although they're not enumerated, quote unquote, forward castes. All of this applies to Muslims just as much as it applies to Hindus. In India, they're not listed because a Muslim can't get a reservation for caste. But that's a distinct attribute of Indian law. That's not the social reality of caste. The social reality is that Muslims have a jati. There are Rajput Muslims. There are, I'm not going to go through the list. I'll get one wrong. There are Muslims in many, many jati in India. Again, Sikhs have identify with a jati, and most Christians, or at least a plurality of Christians, identify with a jati.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. धन्यवाद, नमस्कार.